Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on whatever time you are watching this video. We want to welcome you to the 2021-2022 Resident Advisor, or RA as we like to call them, Candidate Seminar. If you are watching this video that's embedded in the 2021-2022 RA application, then you are in the right place. So on behalf of the HRE RA Recruitment and Selection Committee, we want to spend some time just thanking you for your interest in the RA position, and we are so excited to learn more about you. So before we get started, we'd like to introduce ourselves. So my name is Phil Kuntz. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am currently the Assistant Director for Residential Engagement.
And hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Ortiz. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as a community coordinator.
All right, so for this candidate seminar, we're going to spend the next probably half hour or so covering these three main areas. So we're going to focus on an overview of housing and residential engagement, or HRE abbreviated, alongside some of our core values. We're going to take a more in-depth look at the resident advisor position description, including some of our minimum qualifications for the position, the employment period, what compensation looks like, our selection timeline, and more information about the process, some information about financial aid, and some tips and tricks when it comes to preparing for your interviews, alongside some resume resources. As you've probably seen, we are requiring a resume this year. So we're going to switch gears here and go into our first bullet point to kind of talk about our housing and residential engagement overviews and values. So as you can see in this organizational chart, this is our residential engagement team. So HRE is actually comprised of three functional units. So we have our facilities unit, we have our admin unit, and then we have our residential engagement unit. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to spend some time just focusing on residential engagement. So as you can see, we are led by our Executive Director, Dr. Larry Martin, whose official title is Executive Director of Housing and Residential Engagement and the Titan Experience. We have our three assistant directors. I'm one of them, I already introduced myself. We also have Weston Prisby, who uses he, him, his pronouns and is our Assistant Director of Residential Conduct. And then we have our last assistant director, Tracy Shadowins, she, her, hers pronouns, who is our assistant director of academic engagement. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what academic engagement means alongside some of our initiatives later in this presentation. And so all three of the assistant directors report to our executive director. And then on the opposite side, we have our three full-time community coordinator staff members. So you've already met CC Jen. We have community coordinator Izzy Rangel, she, her, hers pronouns. And then our last community coordinator, Becca Calvillo, she, her, hers pronouns as well. And then beneath Phil, you can see we have a graduate student assistant, Dana Mays. Typically, we do have two graduate student assistants when we're fully staffed, alongside two more community coordinators. So Dana reports directly to Phil, and typically our other graduate student assistant would report to Tracy, our other AD. And then under Phil, we have our Resident Student Association, which is one of our two in-house student organizations that serves as a governing student body for our on-campus population that lives on. And then under CC Gen, you have the NRHH, which is our National Residence Hall Honorary, which is our other student housing organization, very closely related to RSA. And lastly, we have Dr. Latasha Traylor, who works very closely with Tracy on academic initiatives. She is our faculty in residence and actually lives on as well. So to spend a little time talking about our values, our department, HRE, holds the values of learning, connecting, and growing. And so at all times, our department strives to create an environment that encourages holistic growth and holistic learning and development for all students. So this means that we believe that learning doesn't just happen in the classroom. A lot of the learning can also happen within our housing community. And so we also create an environment that gives students an opportunity to connect with one another, Specifically in the RA role, we have RA schedule individual meetings with each of their residents to get to know their residents. Can be anywhere from 40 to 50 or so residents in what we know to be a normal year. But beyond just scheduling that meeting, we hope that RAs are able to create a connection with them and overall enhance their experience while living in our student housing community. And finally, our hope is for our residents living on campus to become socially responsible and productive and engaged members of a global society. So we're going to spend some time talking about the intersection of the RA position and social justice later on in the presentation, but we really do want to strive to teach our residents about social justice and inclusion, whether that's about themselves in relation to other community members, how to be a good neighbor, and just overall life skills.
So our community traditionally has around 1,900 spaces, close to 2,000 spaces. During this past academic year, we did only house roughly 200 to 300 students, and our residence halls were not open. The amount of spaces that we will have open next academic year is still being determined, so we're still trying to figure that out. Our residence halls are traditionally assigned to our first-time freshmen, while our double apartments and our single apartments are traditionally for our second year, all the way up to graduate students. In all buildings, RAs will have a single room. So whether you are placed in a residence hall or the apartments, you'll have your own bedroom. However, RAs that are in our apartment spaces may live with residents and share that apartment with residents, but they will still have their own room. All RAs will receive a 7-day meal plan to use at the gastronome, the late night cafe, and the community market when those places are open. RAs are also able to use the laundry facilities in the community. We have two, one in our residence hall area and one in our apartment area. We also have an academic resource center that offers printing when open. And then we also have a student leader resource center for RAs to use. One of the great amenities in housing is that we provide theme communities that help connect residents to their shared interests and beyond. In what we know to be a normal year, so like last year, we offered 12 theme communities. These theme communities were Rainbow House, the College of Engineering and Computer Science, the College of Natural Sciences and Math, the College of Health and Human Development, the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, the College of Arts, Global Engagement, College of Communications, University Honors Program, and Athena House, which Athena House is a new floor that is partnered with our Women's and Adult Reentry Center, and it's centered around gender equality and empowerment. And then we also have graduate student floor, and then the College of Business and Economics. So with the current pandemic, we are currently only offering our Rainbow House community in our apartments. However, we are still determining what next year's theme communities is going to look like. So kind of transitioning over, we're going to talk about the resident advisor position in more detail. So what is a resident advisor? What are you applying for? A resident advisor is a student leader who lives on campus during their time of employment. A resident advisor creates an environment for residents that promote academic, personal, and social growth, kind of like what Phil was talking about earlier. RAs strive to develop individual relationships with each of their residents. In a typical year, that looks about 40 to 50 residents each, and that can be spread across 1 or 2 floors. So you may have multiple floors, or you may just have one that you're overseeing as an RA. RAs are really there to learn about their residents, like Phil said, connect their residents to resources on and off campus, and overall help residents grow throughout the academic year. So an RA is a resource, a role model, and a mentor to all residents in our housing community. RAs do serve as a crisis first responder and serve on an overnight duty rotation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Overall, RAs develop strong leadership and interpersonal skills in their role and serve as a leader in our community. So more about the resident advisor responsibilities. Our RAs have 4 main areas that comprise their job. So promoting residential learning and growth, duty and crisis response, administrative tasks, and performing other duties as assigned. RAs are responsible for promoting residential learning and development by means of helping residents learn, connect, and grow while living in the student housing community. RAs will facilitate this through year-long educational plan. Some of these strategies include doing resident chats, which are individual conversations and meetings with all of their residents. They develop an inclusive community. They have monthly floor meetings with their community. They also do engagement hours where residents can drop in and hang out with their RA. They also facilitate roommate agreements and roommate conflict mediations if needed. And then also RAs put up bulletin boards and newsletters to educate their residents on various topics. RAs will serve on an overnight duty rotation. Per night, the duty rotation is a shift for 15 to 24 hours. Within that shift, you can still live your life, go to sleep, shower, eat, do all those things, but you are required to stay on campus for the entire hours of your shift. Resident advisors can have anywhere between 25 to 30 overnight shifts on duty per semester, depending on the number of student staff that we have. RAs will serve as a first responder to crisis situations and will be trained on how to critically think through these incidents. You will never be alone on duty. You will always have a partner and a full-time staff member there to help you out. While serving on duty, like I said, RAs will have to remain in our housing community during your shifts. RAs are also responsible for maintaining admin tasks while serving in their role. So these responsibilities include checking their mailbox in our Student Leader Resource Center, which will show you where that's at, email communication from their supervisors. We use a Slack app that we instant message on, and then also making sure that you're checking your phone every day. RAs will have to submit things that we call incident reports and duty logs when they are serving in our on-call rotation. And also RAs will have 30-minute to an hour-long weekly one-on-one meetings with their supervisor, where RAs are expected to come with team updates, resident updates, position updates, and just questions. So that's really a time for the RA and CC to update each other. RAs will also have a weekly staff meeting every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. And then finally, RAs will have to complete other duties as assigned as part of their position. All right, so additional optional responsibilities that you can have as an RA. So RAs have the option to serve as a theme community RA. We talked about those theme communities a little earlier. These closely work with an academic college, usually an assistant dean or an interest-based department. The theme community resident advisor position is one that RAs can apply to after being accepted for the RA role. No previous experience is required for being a theme community RA. It is recommended, but not required, that the RA is a part of the community. For example, it is recommended that the RA be a part of the College of Business for the business floor, but it's not required. We'll show you what the timeline of being a theme community RA is towards the end of our presentation. So in addition to the RA responsibilities, a theme community RA has the following responsibilities. They attend meetings with a theme partner, either weekly, bi-weekly. They also host a theme community builder, so like a program for their floor and theme community.
All right, so as Jen said, RAs do a lot, but it is very rewarding work. You know, I think it is one of those positions that whatever time you put into it, you'll see the reward and you will get maximum benefit from that. But we did want to spend some time talking, as I mentioned earlier, about the intersection of the work that RAs do and social justice. As Jen has described, you can probably see that community and relationship building are two very large components of the RA position. And I think that comes with an understanding that all of the programmatic efforts that you're putting forward and approaches you're taking to the work needs to be inclusive of residents that come from very different walks of life and residents that you serve. So we encourage RAs who plan these programs and partake in collaborations and have these intentional individual interactions with residents to think about ways that they're engaging with their residents that may have different needs or different backgrounds, maybe different learning styles, So this means having a worldview of the programs that could be open for everyone in the community. And so further, relationship building skills need to be strong in order to make these connections with residents that have different identities than you, or interests or goals. And so being an RA requires a level of empathy, and understanding of difference, and a heightened awareness of some systems that exist in the world that maybe aren't the most equitable, and how that plays roles in, you know, everyday life and very differently for each and every individual. And a part of relationship building is also the ability to mediate and resolve conflict when it appears. We know conflict isn't for everyone, and so we'll talk a little bit about training later, but we do extensive training in conflict management and all of that good stuff. So when it comes to training and development, we do extensive training in terms of social justice. So don't feel like you need to come into the position needing to know everything and anything that's out there in relation to social justice. We as full-time staff members still learn every single day. We do have an equity and inclusion committee that's comprised of some of our full-time staff members and actually some of our student leaders that serve in a senior RA role. And so community coordinators alongside assistant directors and our SRA for equity and inclusion develop and implement programs. You may have heard of Cafe for Change that happens, and lots of activities for RAs, but also for residents throughout the academic year. And so in this position, this committee alongside our training committee works to provide as many resources as we can to equip all RAs to feel empowered to lead social justice conversations or programs with their residents. And maybe it's not leading a program, but it's maybe just having a one-on-one conversation about a topic you might be uncomfortable about. And that shows you kind of your growth in the social justice journey. As we'll talk about later, we do have a fall and spring training that we cater specific days of that training to talk about social justice topics and conversations. And so if you go to our website, www.fullerton.edu/housing/RA, this is going to be the home base of all information for our process this year. You'll actually see a section that provides some social justice resources. So some of our diversity initiatives and resource centers will be listed alongside some other online resources that you might be able to take advantage of to help prepare you to reflect on your experiences, and be able to incorporate social justice into your process in whatever way you feel comfortable. And so switching gears here, we're going to talk about minimum qualifications. So now that we've talked about what comprises a position, these are kind of the check boxes that you'll need to meet in order to be qualified for the RA position. So you must hold at least a 2.5 cumulative Cal State Fullerton GPA and a 2.25 semester GPA. You must have at least 12 units earned at Cal State Fullerton by the end of fall 2020 semester, 6 units for graduate level students. And this specifically means that you cannot be enrolled at 6 units at Cal State Fullerton and then 6 units at, let's say, Fullerton College. It has to be 12 specific to Cal State Fullerton. You must be in good judicial standing with the university and housing and residential engagement. And lastly, we found it important to note that we do not require people to live on campus before applying to be an RA. So this means that, yes, transfer students and yes, graduate students are allowed to apply. And so if you are worried about not having the on-campus experience, we do see validity to the lived experiences that you have had and that you can bring into that position as well. All right, so employment period. So this is all things logistics when it comes to the position. So if offered a position, all RAs are contracted to start in August and end in May. So dates usually get, released as we go further down the process and do all that good stuff. But to give you an idea, in early August, typically around the first weekend of August, all RAs will move into their spaces in housing. We will then start our RA fall training, which will be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So lots of quality time with full-time Resi staff, because you'll see us and we'll be the ones leading you through trainings, but also you'll be able to go through some trainings with some of our campus partners. You will be required to be living on campus and present at training each day. So you aren't able to do remote training, you must be here on site on campus, because we do some application-based training where we do tours of the community, walkthroughs, so on and so forth. In January, we actually have our mid-year training, which typically begins 1 to 2 weeks before the start of spring semester. And that's similar to our fall training, just a little condensed and more of a refresher. We have our Welcome to Cal State Fullerton Day, which is a day-long event on a Saturday in April, which we require all RAs to work. During university breaks, such as fall break, winter break, spring break, our apartment communities stay open. And so as a result, we do require folks to be on duty that are assigned to the apartments during these breaks. The residence halls, on the other hand, only close during winter break. So RAs working in our residence halls are asked to serve on duty during fall break and spring break, but will be asked to leave for winter break. And every week, we have a mandatory staff meeting on Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m. We expect all RAs to plan their class schedule around this time and to not schedule any class or extracurriculars during staff meeting. You are given priority registration to help accommodate this time frame. Outside of the RA role, you are typically allowed to have 10 hours of outside involvement. This can include other jobs, volunteer work experience, clubs, organizations. The only catch is that it's contingent upon your supervisor approving it. And so we limit RA's outside involvement to encourage balance. As you heard when Jen was describing, this position entails a lot and can be both physically and mentally taxing. And so we want to make sure that we are prioritizing your well-being at the end of the day. And so, like I said, we understand that this involves a lot of time and commitment. We don't want you to overextend yourselves. And so we hope that you take advantage of some of the measures that we have in place to kind of best encourage time management. Lastly, all RAs are required to live on campus during this entire employment period and to maintain a presence in the housing community on most days. So this means that you should not be spending every single night off campus. Ideally, your supervisors will know when you're off campus if you're going home for a weekend, just so if something were to happen on a floor, they can find coverage. But alongside that, if an RA wants to be off campus or needs to be off the campus for an extended amount of time, we understand life happens. We're all human. We just ask that you communicate that to your supervisor and wait till you get approval.
Yeah, so for compensation, all RAs are compensated for their role through receiving a single bed space on campus. So like I said, every RA will get their own room, and you'll also receive a 7-day meal plan that includes a 200 declining balance per semester, and that is money that can be used at our community market and late night cafe when those are open. As mentioned previously by Phil, RAs do receive priority registration, and that is in order to plan your class schedule around RA time commitments. We also believe that our RAs receive a variety of transferable skills through this position, including leadership, development, communication, critical thinking, crisis response, and time management, and many, many more that can help RAs get future positions on and off campus. So now I'm going to go over our selection timeline. This timeline can also be found on our housing website. So again, that's fullerton.edu/housing/RA. The application did go live on December 7th, and it will close on Sunday, January 31st at 5 p.m. We will not be accepting any late applications, so make sure to get your application in before the deadline. So remember, that's 5 p.m. on Sunday, January 31st. For those who make it past the application process, we will invite you to a new candidate social hosted over Zoom. The purpose of these socials is for you to mix and mingle with other candidates and get to know some of our full-time staff members in housing. For those who are offered an individual interview, we'll be scheduling those for the week of March 8th through March 12th. All individual interviews will be over Zoom, and it will be hosted by one of our full-time staff members and a current RA. We will send you an email update on your candidacy on March 12th, so look out for that. If you are interested in serving as an RA for one of our theme communities that I went over earlier, we'll be hosting those interviews between March 22nd and April 2nd. Interviews for theme communities will be held over Zoom as well, but those will be with a theme partner for the respective community. If you are selected as an RA for the 2021-2022 academic year, you will be invited to a spring welcome that includes a supervisor panel over Zoom on Friday, April 9th. This will be a time for you to meet with the other RAs who also were selected and also your potential supervisor. Finally, on April 16th, we'll be sending you an email of what community you will be in charge of as an RA. So whether you're on a res hall floor, in our apartments, etc. But please note, due to COVID-19 and the uncertainty that comes with this current pandemic, this timeline may be subject to change. If things do need to change, we'll be in constant communication with you all throughout the process, but you can always reach out to Phil as well. So being a RA can impact your financial aid package that you are awarded through the university. This does differ for every individual. However, we wanted to let you know this information so you are aware before becoming an RA. We highly, highly suggest you reach out to the Office of Financial Aid and inquire how your financial aid package may change if you get the RA role for the 2021-2022 academic year. The Office of Financial Aid can still be reached by phone or email, and they do have office hours Monday through Friday. There is more information about their office hours on the financial aid website, so we suggest you check that out.
All right, so we're going to transition into our final bullet point for the candidate seminar, which is just talking about some interview preparation and tips and tricks. So to start off, prepping for your interview, interviews can be scary, interviews can be intimidating, but really their purpose, the sole purpose that we look forward to these interviews for is to honestly learn more about you and your experience. And so we encourage you all that before your interview to just reflect on previous experiences that you have had, thinking critically about how those experiences have shaped your interest and why you are wanting to apply for the RA position. We encourage you to take advantage of our website and to research housing and residential engagement, the position description, talk to current staff members if possible. You might be able to find great interview preparation questions online, so we encourage you to spend some time practicing responses to some of those interview questions. Oftentimes doing so in a mirror or recording yourself is beneficial because you can pinpoint areas of improvement if you choose to. If able, we encourage you to proactively download Zoom. As Jen said, all interviews and all candidate seminars will be happening over Zoom. And if you are not able, please communicate with myself and Jen, and we can work to accommodate your situation as best as possible. If you make it to the individual interview, here are some tips for the day of. So in setting up for your interview, find a quiet place. Make sure that quiet place is a comfortable place, and that it's conducive to you to focus on being present and being in the moment in the interview. So we encourage you to test out your technology ahead of time, to try to arrive 5, if not more minutes early to the Zoom call. If you arrive early, you'll be placed into a waiting room and be communicated with in terms of when your interview will be starting. If able, we encourage you to have a paper and some sort of writing instrument handy, just so you can either jot down important takeaways and notes, or in the moment questions that might pop up for you. And then after the interview, interviewers ask you all of the questions. There's going to be some time for you to ask them questions. So we put the ball in your court. We suggest having 1 and 2 questions on deck and ready. And like I mentioned, above all, the purpose of these interviews is for us to just better understand who you are, what you can bring to the position and to our department, understanding the why behind your interest in the position. And just a note, you do not need to dress up for the interview. We just encourage you to dress as comfortably as you can, to make you feel as comfortable as you can during this interview. So as I mentioned earlier at the start of the presentation, this year we're requiring all candidates to submit a resume. And so we do recognize that for some of you, this might be your first resume that you're submitting. For some of you, you maybe not have touched your resume in a few years or edited it. So we wanted to make sure that we spent some time giving you some resources on campus or online that you could take advantage of. As mentioned, we just hope that the resume gives us not only more insight to your background, but it helps you prepare for starting to know what to expect when you're applying for jobs post-college, because most jobs after college require you to submit a resume and cover letter. We're not doing the cover letter though. So if you do not have a resume complete to date, don't worry, don't stress. We have provided you with all of these many resources to help you get started, and many ways that you can reach out to recruitment and selection if you have any further questions and or concerns. So know that we're here as a resource as well. Here are a few additional resume resources. The first one is one of my personal favorites. It's actually a list of action verbs that will help best describe what you've done at previous jobs or clubs or extracurricular activities on the actual resume. The rest of these are actually resources that are webinars on how to create a resume, and then just several examples of different types of templates of resumes. So we encourage you all to just spend some time glancing at these. These are from our home campus here at Cal State Fullerton.
And lastly, we wanted to spend some time just reviewing all components of a completed application. So make sure that you are answering your demographic information and are including all your responses on the application to our questions. Be sure to upload a resume like Phil was just talking about, and acknowledge the COVID-19 agreement. Again, if you have more questions, you can refer to the website, fullerton.edu/housing/RA. Also, if you have additional questions that you would like to ask me and Phil about any of the information that was shared in this presentation or anything else that you have questions about, feel free to attend our drop-in office hours. We are hosting 4 different ones, so hopefully you can attend at least one of those. The dates are on the screen for you. So we're having one December 7th from 4 to 5 p.m., December 18th from 10 to 11 a.m., January 5th from 10 to 11 a.m., and January 28th from 1 to 2 p.m. So as always, you can look at our website. We'll be updating that with new information as we get it. And finally, thank you for watching our video today, and thank you for your interest in the RA position for the 2021-2022 academic year. We really do appreciate your time and efforts and wish you nothing but the best in the process and filling out your application. If you do have any more questions, like I said, feel free to check out one of those drop-in office hours. If you can't attend that or just want to email Phil, go for it. His email's on the screen. It's just pkuntz@fullerton.edu. And as always, go Titans.